Have you ever felt a presence when no one was there? Or heard a voice in the silence that seemed to be guiding you? Sometimes it feels that angels might walk amongst us. I think they do. And I know my co-hosts think so as well.
Yes, absolutely.
But today we're going to tell the story of my husband, Brian, who until his experience with cancer and his journey, didn't necessarily believe that angels would be not only with us all the time, but showing us signs and guiding us. But his life changed one night in a hospital. And Oh Gross isn't just about talking about the things that can be scary gross. It's also about talking about the things that we're afraid to talk about. And sometimes people are afraid to talk about these phenomenons that happen to us that are unexplainable, but yet feel are guided by something divine.
Right.
Today, we are going to hear about Brian's story about a whisper from beyond and what happened to him one night in the hospital.
Oh, gross. The drama's about to end, 'cause gross. Stop asking for a friend, taboos. Icky is what we do, just science. Yeah, it's not so weird. Your gross out journey starts right here on Oh, gross.
So guys, angels is a big topic to cover, and we're not going to cover it all today. We actually probably need to do a whole episode on the phenomenon and things that people have witnessed and studies that have been done. But we're going to focus on Brian. But in general, I think we've all talked about it multiple times that we've witnessed miracles and angels and have felt a presence.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I do think that we spend a lot of time as humans trying to explain everything away, right? Instead of trusting our gut, or maybe just trusting that our brains aren't used as much as we think they are. So I think while it's a controversial topic sometimes, I think it's only because people are afraid to know that, wow, we don't know everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think too, unless you actually experience it for yourself, a lot of times people just don't believe it. Or if it can't be scientifically explained, then a lot of times people they don't want to hear it, or they're just not going to believe it.
Until something happens. Yeah.
We all know someone that has had an experience like that. And I do think that what you said earlier is true, Kara, that sometimes it is perceived as a taboo topic. But I think we all have experienced something that we can't explain, or know someone that's experienced something that we cannot explain.
Yeah. And I think that when you talk about it more, it becomes extremely inspiring and hopeful. Right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Instead of something scary like, oh, I heard voices in the dark.
Right. Because we're not talking about the scary stuff. We're talking about the types of things that help people or guide them in a way, and they can't explain it.
And
right?
they can't explain it. And they cannot explain it, but something positive happened, or they were protected from something that was completely unexplainable. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm excited to hear Brian's story. I mean, for as long as we've known both you and Brian, Jenny and I have not heard this story at all. So hopefully he's going to inspire some people with this story.
Now, we were into like meditation, and I think like the idea of, certain healing aspects in that perspective, or we did yoga, but he himself had never experienced something where he suddenly had great faith. And I don't mean that in a way that's negative. I think that it just made him have great faith in general, not only faith in what your path in life should be, but also faith within yourself and how empowered you can be, right? Mm-hmm. On your health journey, and that spirituality and trusting is a huge part of it. It's interesting that he doesn't talk about it a lot.
Right, because we've known you for so long, and I would have thought I know every story about you, and so this is really going to be something special that we don't even know it.
Yeah, he does not talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about the carrot juice because we think it's hysterical when he turned orange, as you know, that we talked about in the one episode. And I don't know why, but he doesn't talk about it a lot. But I think, it's really great that he's willing to come talk to us now.
He's in the guest chair.
Hello, ladies.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Now, guys, before we start this, I have to tell you, I've been telling Brian all morning, you are a guest on our podcast today. You are not producing.
It's hard.
I bet it's hard.
We just want you to talk.
We don't want any notes. No notes from you today. Okay. We'll be giving the notes today. So, Brian, we were just talking about angels.
Yes.
The girls have not heard your full story yet, which is exciting.
Right.
I know we talked a lot about it at the time, but I don't know if we ever soup to nuts told everybody the whole story.
No, we did one Facebook post for the 10-year clean, but other than that, never.
I just want to set the night up because there's a little bit of humor when you deal with anything really stressful. So Brian had been diagnosed. He had had the surgery, and we'd already started implementing 18 days before his surgery, the diet we talked about, where we changed his diet. We changed everything in our home. We rid ourselves of any chemicals. And now it was the waiting game of what this was going to mean. First of all, Brian's tumor was the size of an orange.
Wow.
Yeah, it was for colon cancer. I think it was on the very big side.
Scary.
Very big side.
Oh, yeah.
He got a foot of his colon removed, and he was in the hospital it was about 48 hours, and I had not slept because who would? And he wasn't sleeping well either. And I was staying in a little cot in the hospital room.
Right.
Anyway, so my girlfriend was a nurse in the ER, and she could tell that I was exhausted, I was tired, and I needed to get out. And she was like, you need to get out. So why don't you go across the street? They have really good martinis, because you guys know I love good martini.
Right.
But you're not supposed to really leave the hospital and come back. And, so I went and I had 2 martinis. I didn't have one. I'm not going to lie.
I don't blame you.
And I had to sneak back into the hospital to spend the night, literally sneaking, thinking Brian's asleep because the lights are off and it's really quiet. And, he doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
I'll let him take it from here and kind of walk us through, what was happening for him when I snuck into the hospital room after 2 martinis.
Yeah, the angel story is really good. But I want to go back 2 weeks so we can set the scene.
Which is exciting. We should give it a little more context before we jump right into the angel story.
So for a while, what had been happening since I was diagnosed was we instituted a ton of things and kind of threw everything at the wall. And it was not only going vegan at the drop of the dime. From the day I got diagnosed, I had never even said a rosary before that. And driving to the CT scan from the colonoscopy, Kara grabbed out a rosary and started teaching me the rosary. So that was,
I
said, okay, well, I'm going to learn the
day you were diagnosed,
learn the Hail Mary here. So we did it all the way to the scans. And from there, we progressed everything. I know in the other episode, she mentioned Eastern, Western, integrative doctor that said, get the tumor out and we'll implement everything later for the healing. But, we also went to church every Sunday. My friend Bill was at the Lutheran church in Encino. We went there. Kara found a integrative acupuncturist. And the first thing we said was, because the 3 lymph nodes were lighting up, do whatever acupuncture you know how to do to block those lymph nodes, block it from spreading. And she gave me some exercises of like lymph draining, going across your chest and down your abdomen and under your armpits. And it was like, lift your armpit, turn your head one way, and then how to do that.
She was teaching him how to do self-lymphatic massage, which is great for anybody, even if you're not on a health journey or having a health crisis.
So she taught me how to do that. And then also with I signed an oncological psychotherapist to go to talk to somebody, the big stress of not sure of the exact grading.
Just explaining, he had a spot on his liver. So he didn't know at this point if he had stage 4 or not, because they saw a spot in the scan they did.
Right. The PET scan showed 3 lymph nodes they were concerned about, not sure if they were metastasized, and said, well, that's another thing to look at. So the psychotherapist gave me some meditations. One I remember was pretend you're going down an escalator and things like that.
Yeah, we have to talk about that one for a second.
A CD.
So he comes home with this CD. Now, people will be coming over to see him. And you have to remember, we did yoga together and I was into meditation, but you didn't do a ton of meditation before this time in your life.
No, not really.
He's getting his first legs on meditation. So all of a sudden, we're sitting in the living room and then we would hear it, walk down the stairs. And you would hear it. And then all of a sudden, whoever was over, all of a sudden, we're going to take a nap here. It would make you so relaxed listening to his meditation. I remember girlfriends coming over and just be like, oh, how you doing? I'm like, he's meditating. And then all of a sudden are zoning, like total chill.
Yeah, everybody in the house would start zoning out.
It's a Zen palace.
Do you guys meditate? Do you meditate at all?
I love to meditate. I don't do it as often as I should, but I actually really enjoy doing it.
And I think it's a very personal thing. There's so many different forms of meditation and I've studied quite a few of them. But I think that when you find the one that works for you, and sometimes that can be just going outside and connecting, right? Earthing. It works. I don't know if you remember this, Brian, but you didn't exactly love the going down the stairs thing. That was really annoying to you in the beginning?
I kind of cut that one out. Because she was an oncological psychotherapist that did a lot of research with UCLA and Cedars here in Los Angeles. She also gave me a visual meditation. And what she said was, when you meditate, this is a physical meditation. Think of the cancer and imagine it being like bad black mass. And then she said, start thinking in your body of it turning pink. And like when you put a newspaper or paper on a campfire and the ash turns black and floats off into the air. She said, think of the cancer and think of like a campfire. So as it's turning pink, all the black starts disintegrating and floating off into the air and going away. So it was more like a very focused physical meditation.
And that clicked for him. That really clicked for him. And you would talk about the army a lot, like you were visualizing your internal army.
I think it's the thymus, right above the sternum, that helps your immune system. And they said, tap it to activate it. And then you imagine strong army of T cells going through your body, checking everywhere, because it could be metastasized, like head, fingers, and knees, toes, and then send it all to the cancer spot. So essentially I took everything everybody said and combined it all and did my own therapy. And usually I would actually do it in the shower. And I was just throwing everything at the wall. After the surgery, it was Wednesday night of Thanksgiving week. Kara had gone out, friends took her out. So I was sitting there and just amongst all the hospital stuff. One of the important things is that your body needs to wake up under the colon surgery. They make sure it's all working. And you have to fart and essentially go to the bathroom, because you're eating food now by day 3 of surgery.
You got to get it working.
Make sure it's all working. Get up, walk around was on the board, did that goal the first night, said, I don't care how much it hurts. I got to get up. And the little checklist they have on that wall, you do it or not. There was no holding back.
Chris Beat Cancer talked about this a little bit on our episode with him, that it's really a mindset that you are going to, number one, believe you can do great things with your mind and body, right? And number 2, are open to healing, or you're open to receiving it. And we've had a lot of people call us and say, like, well, how do we do this if you've been sick? And it's funny because Brian from day one always was like, I'm going to do everything I have to do. I'm going to figure out with all these people what they're saying, how I can believe in healing. And I'm going to do it every single day. And he did. He worked as hard on healing and meditating and connecting spiritually, than I've ever seen anybody in 18 days, believe it or not, like in 18 days changed his life. And so when it was the hospital and it was about getting out of bed with that abdominal surgery, he didn't care if it hurt, he was going to walk. And they told us that a minimum was 4 nights. The average person is 5 nights after a surgery like his. And he had it laparoscopically.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I did take it pretty hardcore because, they give you the little pushy button for pain. I dropped that on the floor. I did one, I think, the first 2 hours after waking up from surgery.
Just did right after surgery. And then you never touched it again.
I didn't push the button again.
Oh my gosh.
The first night I only made it like 3 steps out the bed, but I got out the bed.
You did it though.
It hurt really bad, but I made myself do it.
I want to say one thing here too. I mean, anyone who's had abdominal surgery, those of us who have had C-sections too, right, know how painful abdominal surgery can be.
Yeah.
There's one thing I just want to add real quick. Do you remember this? He didn't take that medication because he knew it could also stop him up. Right. So he wasn't going to do anything that was going to slow down your digestion.
They make you constipated. Yeah.
It's the worst idea I could do. Right.
But the morning after his surgery, they bring him his breakfast and it's eggs with cheese on top. And we're like, what? He just had a foot of his colon taken out and you're going to give him a cheese omelet? Remember, Brian?
Fake orange juice product. I didn't actually eat any hospital food. Kara brought in all the food fresh.
Wait, also, can we talk about something funny for a second? His nurse was really hot. Remember how hot she was? I was dying laughing. I mean, I can't remember, but she was pretty hot. Okay, guys. And he's got to walk around, but his whole thing is that her job is to help him walk to go take a shit. It was so funny. And we were all dying laughing. It was hilarious. Right. So we had all these jokes because she was so hot.
Well, she was pretty, but she also wore white scrubs. But then Kara or even my parents or people visiting could tell she had on like a red underpants or a red bra.
Hey,
like you can see through it.
Yes.
But yes, everybody who came to visit would be like, is she wearing red underwear? We're like, yep.
She sure is.
It was so fun.
So this whole backstory kind of leads up to that night in the hospital to kind of understand what happened.
I have a question just really quickly.
Okay, yes.
So leading up to Kara leaving the hospital, what was the time frame before she came back?
at this point, I don't really know. I was sitting there and basically just kind of hearing the beeps and all the buzzes you do in the hospital and the little, heart monitor machine.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And what was happening during that time?
What I was doing was thinking, okay, I want to get out of the hospital as fast as I can and have them release me. So I started doing my physical meditation. And the cancer was out, so I kind of cut out the turning into ashes pink part, but I did a little lymph massage and then was just breathing and doing a very physical meditation of, okay, the only way to get out of this hospital is basically to fart and poop.
So you were meditating about poop.
Right, basically. No, it sounds so silly. That's what I was doing. So, your intestines are this big jumbled mass, but your colon comes up around the right side, across and down the left side, down to your rectum and your butt. So basically I was of a swirly circle and just breathing and just telling my intestines, okay, keep waking up. I want to get out of here. So I'm just thinking this circle in my tummy and like just trying to visualize, like move around, up, down, come up the colon and out. Little by little, I just started getting more relaxed and more relaxed. And then I noticed a difference. And I felt like there was like I can only describe it as a presence or an energy.
Could you see like an aura or a haze in front of you at this point?
Like it wasn't like a form.
You told me it was like a purple, pink sort of orb, but not a real figure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was a figure. And I guess it's a little hard for me to remember because I was meditating with my eyes closed. When you have your eyes closed, you kind of know where lights are. And I think that's when I got the first sense of purplishly aura presence that it's really hard to describe, I guess, exactly how I felt it or saw it. But I did get the sense of a purpley pink.
And it was dark in the room. It was totally dark when I walked in the room. That's why I thought he was sleeping.
I kept doing my meditation and it kind of started getting stronger. And then it seemed like a bigger energy. I can almost, not like a purple form, but I got this, if people talk about auras, I would say enigma, nothing in concrete shapes or anything like that. And so it went a little mental checklist again in my mind. And I started thinking like, what is happening right now? Okay, I'm in the hospital room. I don't think I'm sleeping. I'm just doing my little meditation or dreaming or anything like that. And then, so I thought to myself, I said, I thought like, I don't know if this is wishful thinking because I wasn't praying in the sense of praying to God. I wasn't praying to be cured. I wasn't praying for a miracle. All I wanted to do was get out of the hospital. And so then I said in my head or to this presence, I thought, I don't know if you're an angel. I don't know what is going on here. But, I actively said, if you're here to heal me or this is healing, I said, like, I'll accept it.
Oh, I just got chills.
I have chills.
I got chills.
And then I started feeling like any body tension and everything was just getting peaceful and kind of quiet, the way everybody would term anything as feeling grace.
Wow.
And I told Kara, I said, I don't really know what's going on, but I think maybe I'm being healed because she had come back in the room from her dinner.
So I go to curl into my cot and all of a sudden he says to me, do you see it? Do you feel it?
Mm-hmm,
and I was like, see what? Feel what? And he's like, can you come over to my bed? And he asked me to put my hands over his abdomen and at first I was like, what's going on? But I can tell you girls, I felt this, like, I can't explain it. It was this heat of energy coming in from this one corner of the hospital room that felt like an energy, like, almost like something sitting on your shoulder, but you feel the warmth. Mm-hmm. And when I asked him, I said, where are you seeing this? It was the exact corner that I was feeling it. So I knew something incredible was happening. By the time I was standing over him, he was saying over and over again, if you're here to heal me, I accept it.
Kara, could you see anything at this point or could you just feel it?
So when I walked over, I can't explain it except for the feeling of almost like heat. And when I asked him what corner it was in, he told me it was exactly the corner that I was feeling it from. And it was just a feeling of, like he said, knowing something was happening And then in my head, I was laughing to God. I was saying, of course, after 2 martinis, I come back and we're in like a healing session.
You just needed to be opened up a little bit, Kara.
I was loosey-goosey. I was in for it. But no, I do. Yeah, exactly. Right. The next day was Thanksgiving. We were told we wouldn't hear any results because of it, remember?
Yeah, they said the pathology will probably be back Friday.
Well, first of all, lots of things happened Thanksgiving. Brian had a poop.
Yay! The meditation worked.
That little checklist, the checklist on the hospital wall.
Yes.
Do all those
Brian
things.
farted and pooped.
Well, that was not fun walking over to that bathroom, though.
No. And then the surgeon comes in sweating. He had jogged to the hospital. And we were always cracking jokes in front of the surgeon. And he was a very surgeon-y surgeon, where he was very dry and like a surgeon-y. Like a surgeon. You know how surgeons, like, I love surgeons. Surgeons are the best. But if they have to stay like steady, calm, non-emotional, right? And that's like, they're like cutting you open. And so like, I just would try to make him crack up all the time because it was just like my thing. And so he comes in jogging and he was like, okay, I heard the results. And so I wanted to jog here and get them. And we're like, oh, whoa, how are the results in? So he probably already knew and was like kind of doing like he thought he was cracking a joke with us. So he logs in and he's like, okay, 23 lymph nodes are negative. And so me and Brian are like, okay, well, how many did you take?
Like 23 out of 26.
And he's like, 23.
Whoa.
And he's like, look, I can make jokes too. We're like, that wasn't funny.
He tried.
But we're like, yay. He couldn't believe it that there were, they were certain that 3 of those lymph nodes lit up and that, that we were, could have been a 3C or a 4. The surgeon even said it was kind of a miracle. And so to have all those things line up and then have none of the lymph nodes test positive are like unheard of. And then to have him get out of the hospital on Thanksgiving Day, which technically I think was 75 hours that he'd been in the hospital. And, they found out the spot on the liver was just a liver spot. So it was nothing.
Relieving.
All these things sort of lined up, that was considered completely insane. Then, Brian, you got to tell what happens when you go back to your psychotherapist and tell the story of the angel.
Now that, the cancer's out, I did go back post-surgery and recovery, essentially now being so far a cancer survivor. And from my perspective, she's an oncological psychotherapist, very clinical type person, wanting to know my mental state and things like that. So I said, this might be out of left field and a little weird. I've never had anything like this before, but something happened in the hospital room. And I don't know if it was an angel, but I felt a presence. And I said, if it was here to heal me, that I accepted. And I told her the story. To really big to my surprise, she said there are a lot of cancer survivors who actually report that say they were healed, a purplish type presence. That specific color comes up all the time talking with people. And I was surprised. And I said, really?
There was a name for the angel, right? Metatron or something?
Yeah. And she said, we actually correlate it with angels and things like that. She said, what we believe is that it's the archangel Metatron.
Metatron, that sounds like a transformer.
I know it does, right?
Yeah, it literally does. Megatron,
but that was the king of,
I don't know.
Tron, right.
Yeah, it's like the archangels, the king of angels, like the big head honcho angel. Yeah, and then there were other things they told you. I don't remember, Brian, that you said.
I was really surprised by that, very clinical sounding, but to actually say the name of which archangel they think it is, that was really surprising. I didn't expect that at all.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And then they also said that they had studies, I don't think she went into in depth, but there were studies being done on people who pass peacefully, see a different angel, or describe at those moments, right, that they have great peace brought to them, even though, that they might die. And
I mean, I feel like we could talk for about 20 episodes on angels. I mean, just my experiences, Jenny's experiences. I mean, we've all had different things happen to us regarding angels. And so that's absolutely fascinating what happened to you.
I also think that the power of the mind and the way that you really took all of the things that worked for you and you envisioned it, which was so crazy, Brian. But it's amazing the power of the mind. And I love that you took everything, including your spirituality, and it all worked for you. And I think that you got a gift and a miracle.
Right.
I think it's good to note too that you guys took all the information you had with making sure that you got all of the toxins out of your house and the holistic approach, and you put so much effort into it leading up to the surgery. I mean, I think that says a lot for the type of people that you are, and you are taking and putting forth all this effort to do your part to heal. And I think that goes a long way.
I think the mind is just as important, right? And it's part of the whole. You can take the medicine, you can eat better, but that real big part is the power of the mind, like you said. And no matter what you believe in, the mind is powerful. I mean, think about it. We know that we don't use all of our brain power, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so if we work in meditation in whatever form works for you, I mean, whether it's guided or not guided, or it's a body scan, I do body scans all the time too, Jenny. I think that it's mindfulness and the idea that like whatever works for you to connect in that way and trust your body and know. I mean, Jenny and I were on the phone and I was freaking out. Dr. Google was freaking out again.
I'm not surprised.
Is it not Dr. Chat GBT or one of those?
No, I'm not going to Chat GBT. I'm afraid what my Chat GBT pet would say to me. Yeah, will say to me because it knows too much. But it was a real health thing, right, Jenny? It was a real health thing I was worried about. I mean, I had some blood work. It's all going to be okay. And I was really upset and worried.
Right.
A lot of what Brian did too, which is, he wasn't on his computer or phone the whole time. I mean, when he got sick, he was working 2 jobs pretty much, right? And doing the night shift and editing.
Yeah, that was the first job I ever quit. It's almost a rite of passage at some point. Not only do you work the night shift when you're a young editor or an AE, you go to the night shift and then you work your way up, try to move up and get on a day shift and keep moving up in the edit world. And another one was doubles. So a lot of times when a job would cross over for a couple of weeks, one might be the day shift and then it's crossing over like as a junior editor or a younger editor at the time to work the night shift somewhere else. And sometimes there's the overlap. So get off at 6, basically do an hour commute to the other job in LA traffic, and then work till like 3, 4 in the morning and coming home and maybe sleeping 3 hours.
Oh my gosh.
I got diagnosed and went to the PET scan. One of the ways I coped with it, I guess, was I think Kara was like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I'm going to work.
No, it was worse than that. No, we forgot about, no, it was worse than that.
We can imagine.
We get this diagnosis, right? That we know it's cancer. We don't know what we're living in the blurred version of 3 BC or 4. Because remember, this is at the same time that we had just started our production company. We had just done our first film and we were now trying to pitch shows. But we were both still working for other people. And I had a pitch that night I was supposed to do. And so my old bosses were having a party that night. And we couldn't tell anybody, because he didn't want to tell anybody yet. And I understand why, right? So he goes to work and I'm like, what are you doing? You're going to work. And he's like, I got to go to work. I was like, okay.
I was on the night shift.
The night shift. Oh. So he tells me, and you're going to that party and you're pitching our show. And the show idea, this is like so crazy. The show idea was about these moments in life where you're like, can change in an instant. Like it was like, we had like a waiting room concept about it. So like you'd have the person in the waiting room and then they find out like they're pregnant. They find out they have cancer. They find out whatever. This is the freaking show idea. And that you walk, through that journey of like how the idea was actually pretty good because that some of the worst moments in life can actually end up being, we were hoping to track the journey where you learned that wasn't as bad as you thought because something good comes out of it. But so I'm at this bar and I have to pitch the idea. And then
did you have a martini?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, no, I had a vodka soda. Okay. It was much more of a vodka soda bar. It wasn't, you wouldn't get a martini there. It wasn't a nice bar. Then afterwards, I'm sitting in front of our 2 friends and my one friend is like sitting across from me and she's like, oh, my mom cancer's back. And I just start bawling hysterically. What they don't know is we have this like thing we can't tell anybody. So the whole night I'm worried about him at work. I'm at this work party. And then one of our closest friends, Rachel Brill, I don't know why. She was the only person I had to tell somebody. And I go in the bathroom, then I close the door and I was like, I have to tell you something. And she's like, okay. And I told her and she was like, we're going to get through this. And then I'm like, what do I do? And I like started sobbing. And then I came home that night and I told him I felt like I had to wait up. Remember, I waited until he got home because I couldn't sleep. But the funny thing was he needed to go to work that day. He needed to know that I wasn't going to not go to the pitch. But then you made some big life decisions to take care of your stress amount and realize, what was healthiest for
Right.
you.
Well, that's when
You know?
I went to the acupuncturist and we did the whole diet and everything was going. And I guess it was about day 7 after diagnosis or somewhere in around there. It just kind of hit me. That's when it finally settled in. I called the other job and I said, I'm so sorry. I can't come tonight and I have to basically quit. Basically, that's when I told him or told the supervisor, I said, I was after this week and I just can't do the doubles anymore. And I'm basically getting surgery in 10 days at this point. And, I'm very sorry quitting because I
And you
had
also, like-
cancer
Yeah.
and needed to
Well, when you also go,
get on track for surgery.
well, also too, I think when you get diagnosed with cancer young, some people didn't know how to deal with us. Like it was a fear. There's a fear, and I think that's a little bit about what Oak Gross is about. Like some people didn't call or talk or know what to do because they didn't know how to say the wrong thing. And there's probably a fear there too. Like, wait a minute, we had just gotten married. We were, in our early 30s, right? And if this what does that mean if this could happen to you? You know what I mean? There were people who have that natural personality who were definitely there for us like 100%. And, we're over all the time and checking in. But there was a lot of people too that I think were sort of like, oh shit, what does this, sort of mean? So I do think going back to sort of what the podcast is about, normalizing, even the scariest things in life that people, shouldn't be afraid to talk about it with someone or.
Well, as Kara has talked about during the colon cancer month in the past episodes, I was extremely anemic and my vitamin D level was so low that clinically I was at the rickets level and my numbers were so off when I was.
Your iron was terrible.
Yeah, my Western doctor put me on some like super crazy prescription only or some strength iron pills to get that up and vitamin D. And
it was funny because you remember that too, because some people were like, you need to eat steak. You shouldn't be vegan anymore because that's why your iron level's down. And thank God our doctor who knew who was actually, I think we found out our doctor was vegan, right? Yeah. Was like, well, no, you don't, there are other ways to get iron, but the reason why they're so low is your tumor was bleeding inside of you and also taking all the blood, from you, at the same time. So it was this a lot of misinformation when it comes to certain things. I mean, that there are other ways to get iron. We think we had to do a lot of spinach, remember? It was like a ton of spinach too with your supplements.
Let's say greens, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we forget how big the tumor was and how sick it was making you and how miraculous it was that you were okay afterwards.
One thing Jenny mentioned about, we've been talking about faith. And I think for, if you're diagnosed with cancer or even some other sort of maybe almost inoperable condition or something that could essentially be terminal, at that point, I think it's like, what do you have to lose? I don't think it matters if, which religion you might believe in or types of meditation and everything. At that point, it was like, I believe in everything. I am throwing everything at the wall. I am doing, basically maybe Christian-based faith, going to church, doing the rosaries. I was doing Eastern.
And also like what we were comfortable, right? What we were comfortable with too. I think people do, like you were raised in a Christian-based faith as well. And whatever you're comfortable that gets you to the point to be able to do it. I mean, when I used to go down to, after Brian's experience, I started taking some classes and getting certificates in different sort of healings. That's when I, went down to Optimal Health Institute and did their 3-week program, not as someone who coming there is sick, but like because I'd seen such a healing transformation. A lot of the people that I met there some of them were stage 4. They had cancer all over the body and they did this juicing, for months on end. And some of them were fully cured and some weren't. And I think that mentality of, I'm going to believe, you have to believe, and they talked about that a lot. You also have to believe it's going to work, right? Mm-hmm. If you go through the motions and you don't believe it's going to work, well, then you're working against your own body, and I think that's a lot of things too with like Reiki.
I think that's with a lot of things in life.
A lot of things in life. Exactly,
Absolutely.
Molly. I know. And that's why I even got my Reiki certification because of how amazing it can be.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think amongst all that mixed stuff too, it sent me to like 2 or 3 Reiki sessions as well.
I think it was such a transformative experience to see, Brian and the benefits of Reiki and I had gone to Reiki and then I was like, hey, I want to learn how to do this and I want to, learn how to help facilitate healing, right? Mm-hmm. It's really what it is. You're facilitating the body to heal, right? You're calling
accessing that part of the mind that isn't
energy.
awake yet. Yeah. And you whatever that you can do that will awaken that part and give you the faith that you can be okay. You know, I think
exactly.
that's so important.
And my father used to say, energy is neither created nor destroyed. So I cannot argue the fact that there wouldn't be energy, right? Around us in any way, shape, or form it's sort of helping us. There's something beyond myself to help me. Right. You know, and I trust in that. And I think that that's a big thing too. And also, again, it's kind of, as much as people are fascinated by angels and things like that, it's a kind of a taboo thing too. I mean, it really is. Like, if you're in the wrong circle of people, they'll be like, ooh, right? And everyone has these experiences.
Yeah,
I mean,
I guess, like at the beginning of the episode, we said I've never really told the story. I've mentioned it to friends, but it's nothing I really, I guess, go around professing or saying. It's
right.
It may be in a sad way. At 15 years later, at this point, unless I'm talking about it like something like this, I actually even forget. It's almost like it never happened. Not only that, but even the surgery. And even the cancer, like I do think about that every day because I do think about what I eat and things like that. And I will do a lymph draining every once in a while. And I get my colonoscopy every 3 years. But the years go by, it's almost like looking back, it's like, wow, that really did happen. I almost could have potentially died. And, sometimes I even, just even forget about it now.
And sometimes it's even the fact that these phenomenons happen for everybody. I mean, my really good friend I grew up with, her name's Alita, and she and we went to like grammar school together. And we both have this like terrifying fear of flying. It's like obnoxious, and I'm going to own it. It's obnoxious. Okay. Like, we either have to have like 4 drinks to get on a plane. I've gotten better. I can fly sober now, but like, I mean, we really are terrified. And there was this one time we forgot about it, and we just started talking about it the other day, like 21 years ago. Her and I just moved out to LA, and I was going back and forth to San Francisco because this is the year before I met Brian. I had a boy up there that I thought that I wanted to. It was my college boyfriend. I thought we were going to get back together. It was stupid. You know the story. I was covering San Francisco in my area, so I'd go up there and do more stories if I could, so I could see him. Sometimes she would come with me, and we're both terrified of flying, and we're sitting at the gate, and we had gotten to the plane early, and we're like, should we have one drink? Well, we need a drink to get on the flight because it's how we flew back then. And we're having a drink, and we can see the door. And we're just having this like talk, and we were having this like spiritual conversation. I don't know how. And all of a sudden we look up and they're closing the gate. Now, mind you, we could see the gate. We're like, wait, why are you closing it? Sorry. And they close it right on our face. So now we're like freaking out. We've missed our flight. What are we going to do? And all of a sudden, 15 minutes later, it's all over the news that flight takes off and has one of those like rare phenomenons with like turbulence, like it hit some sort of air pocket. And like, I don't know, 10 people had to go to the hospital. They had to make an emergency landing. We were going to be on that flight. If we had been on that flight, we would have never flown again. So when the next flight we had to get on, she couldn't breathe. She was worried. I'm like, I'm not worried. And she's like, why are you not worried? I mean, I was fine. I said, oh, because that was an angel. Mm-hmm, we would have got on that flight. Now, granted, I don't think we would have died or anything, but we would have been so paralyzed with fear that we couldn't eventually get over our fear that we had, right, of flying. So I think angels can be around us in those ways too. Like those moments of that sliding door where the universe knows better for you, that it could, stop you from being who you're supposed to be in life.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, Brian, we thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yes, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Amazing. Well, I think it's important for everyone to note that no matter what you're practicing, whether it's you're doing veganism, whether you're practicing Eastern medicine, Western medicine, it's always important to check with your professional medical healthcare provider or your doctor.
Exactly. And a lot of what we were talking about today is, like we said, supplementing, supporting. Brian had a team of doctors. He had a surgeon. He had an oncologist. He had, his amazing integrative GP. But again, these were things that we did to support the journey of what our professionals told us to do that was best for his health and his survival. I think it's so interesting too, because, obviously I know the story and I was there for part of it, but it's funny what everybody remembers in the moment, about experiences like that, like what your takeaways are. Like what Brian was saying, like you almost forget, that he almost forgets like the details, but yet you can tell the impact is still there. You know what I mean? And then when you start talking about it, and I think that's another reason that everyone should talk about it. Like even just talking about that story right now, to me, brings back the empowerment and the reason why, we can all make our lives better, healthier, happier, less stressful, like Brian quitting his job. I mean, it's a good reminder. I mean, I had forgotten that he had finally, until we started talking, that he had finally make the decision for his own health and be like, I can't do this job anymore. It's a reminder to everybody that all these things happen to sort of keep us on a path, and there can be divine intervention sometimes. I think it's interesting what we remember and what we don't remember. Like, even just talking to Brian right now, girls, like, I started remembering more stuff and the reasoning behind it and how much it's changed our life. I mean, just the fact alone that he quit the job that was the night shift, and I can tell you now, even when we have to work like crazy things where we are up until like 2 or 3 in the morning, like, it's not healthy for you. It's not good. And that was part of that journey back then. And it's a good reminder, like, everything happened with that intervention, which we think is divine, for a reason, to remind us of like how to be better and how to trust ourselves and take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
it's
important.
also a good reminder to be present.
Yes, and be present. Yes.
You have to be present in your everyday life.
And not getting sucked down the cell phone, Instagram, TikTok rabbit hole.
I was going to say it's a good reset to try to keep in healthy habits and not fall back into the things that we were doing before, and remember, how you felt or how he felt at that time, which was really good for me to hear, because I felt like I was there in the room and I teared up listening to him. And it was a good reminder of the things that are really important in life, and to try to take, like Molly said, be present in your life and take yourself out of all of the craziness of the world and just, be present and healthy, and remember how much power your mind has and how much control you can have over your life.
Well, I think it's easy. I don't want to say it's easy. Sometimes you're forced to advocate for yourself when you're in a situation where you're backed against a wall, right?
Right.
But we should be advocating for ourselves every day.
Yes.
And
each other.
And each other.
And each other.
And just realizing that like life is too short and we need to like be present. Yep. It's a good reminder.
It is. And it's a good reminder to put the effort forth to better ourselves and to allow those miracles to take place. Brian put so much effort into it, and so did you. So, and I think that's a really important point for everyone to remember, because you do have to advocate for yourself, and you do have to put forth that effort so that you can heal and you can do better and feel better.
And you have to, the funny thing was, there were a lot of things we were trying to control, and we did. Diet, what's in the house. But at some point we had to make a pact with each other that some of this was out of our control. If he wasn't going to do chemo, we were never going to turn to each other and say, well, if chemo had happened, you'd be okay. Whatever happened was going to happen. We had to let go of control. And isn't that a big part of life too? Because we want everything to be in our control. And there are some things that aren't in our control, but sometimes that can make us sick in general, just trying to control everything. I know I'm guilty of it.
Same, 100%. Miss Type A. Yes.
Yeah, you can't control everything. And so I think a big part of Brian's journey was letting go of control. And he still, to this day, I will tell you right now, always says, I'm not going to worry about things that haven't happened yet. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And that's a good lesson, right?
That is.
Is it so? Well, what a great episode. We'll have to talk more angels later.
Absolutely. Do you love what you're hearing? Well, make it official and follow Oh Gross on whatever your favorite podcast platform is. You never want to miss a real, raw, and ridiculously good story.
Search Oh Gross wherever you listen and hit follow.
Oh, gross. That drama's about to